Hey guys, it's Matt Static. Happy Halloween. Damn. Happy belated? You know, I've been always telling myself I'm really gonna catch up on my horror experiences for Halloween, but I end up being very picky about it. I've been trying to force myself to play Resident Evil 1 for about 4 years now, but I just end up playing Batman again. Or Dead Rising. A little Dead by Daylight in there, some Bloodborne. Fortnite's in the schedule somewhere. I end up sticking with stuff I'm comfortable with, which is kind of the opposite of what the season's about. So this year, I wasn't looking for something to just scare me. I didn't want something that was just gonna give me a heart attack every 3 minutes. I wanted something that specifically made me uncomfortable. So I'm gonna try Resident Evil again. You know, honestly, I was just playing this game to get footage for the video, but I ended up figuring out what I needed to do and getting far into it, so it took a while, but I think I finally like this game. At this point, I can try Code Veronica or the original 2 and 3. You know, they have the original director's cut on PlayStation Store for some reason. Anyways, this video is about Manhunt. Manhunt is a scary game where you hunt man. Well, actually, scary isn't exactly the word I'm looking for. It's more like gross. Kind of gets under your skin. Uncomfortable, like I said in the last paragraph 30 seconds ago. It's a survival stealth game that places a really big emphasis on the way you brutally murder people, which helped to make it one of the most controversial games from a studio that was already notorious for. I swear I'm not covering Rockstar games on purpose. I've been studying film in school, and the more I've learned about film, the more I've started to appreciate Rockstar's older catalog. Most of the games they made or produced took a lot of inspiration from different movie genres and eras, almost to the point of tribute. Different types of gangster and crime movies, obviously. School comedies for a game like Bully. I think Midnight Club takes after Need for Speed and racing movies or something, don't quote me on that. They had a ping pong game too, right? That's where Manhunt really just becomes so unique and weird. Around the 70s and 80s, a lot of low-budget horror movies started making waves by going out of their way to be as shocking and nasty as possible. It was a sector of exploitation films called Grindhouse horror. Exploitation in the sense that they were taking advantage of a specific trend or niche. The specific trend, Grindhouse, is kind of tough to describe. It's not just a lot of blood and guts, though there definitely is that. It's more like this feeling of being somewhere nasty, surrounded by nasty people doing nasty things, and that's what the horror of these movies derived from. Think about the feeling you get watching the original Texas Chainsaw. That kind of sweaty, decaying, disgusting vibe it gives off. It's kind of like that with more gore and less quality. That genre is Manhunt's main influence, and it makes for this suffocating atmosphere unlike any other. One so pungent that it's strong enough to carry the entire game, because to be honest, I don't even like playing this that much, but the vibes though. This game takes place in Carcer City, which is apparently in the same universe as the GTA games, and you know, it kind of makes you appreciate how safe and friendly those cities are. You play as this death row inmate, James Earl Cash, who was kidnapped from execution so he can star in a snuff film. For those who don't know, snuff films are basically live leak footage before the internet. It's recordings of actual murders. So this director, Starkweather, throws you around the city to shoot the scenes with gangs of criminals that are a little too happy to play along. You can stop now. Oh my god, he's still going. It's kill or be killed, while brutalizing and maiming as much as possible for extra points. Against bad people though, which makes it okay. You know, if you think about it in a certain way, he's kind of like Batman in the way that everyone in this game is vulgar and excessively potty-mouthed. Definitely not people to invite to the company picnic, but all in different shades and styles of homicidal weirdos. Unlike me, they're having a lot of fun here. Starkweather will be your guiding voice and captor throughout the experience. Very demanding and creepy with a really killable type of energy to him. I feel like Cash is what Claude from GTA 3 would be like if he could talk. Reasonably pissed off, otherwise quiet and efficient. Just like Batman. No one's really likable at all here, except Tramp, he's pretty cool. But otherwise, they do a good job at keeping your attention and go along with the environments well. Speaking of which, so big surprise, but it turns out Rockstar is pretty good at world design. The areas are linear and there isn't too much reason to go off exploring, but they tend to branch off all around and layer, which makes it really easy to get lost and get caught and get killed. Most of the game is claustrophobic and extremely dark, but it's funny how that becomes comforting after a while. Open spaces and bright lights are way more of a disadvantage than seeability and breathing room are worth. They're the real enemy here. There's a gamer joke there somewhere, but the Batman comparison really keeps coming back in because the shadows will become your best friends. Though in the Arkham games, it's more metaphorical since you're swinging around the gargoyles or staying in the vents most of the time. But in Manhunt, the game I'm actually playing and making a video on instead of Batman, The abundance of shadowed out spaces literally make you invisible. As long as enemies don't touch you, hear you, or see you walk into the shadows, you can't be seen. And it's funny, because in an open space they've got a pretty realistic line of sight, but God forbid you go against a wall or something. I'd count on them a little bit more, but I can't see shit either, so that's not really fair.
You know what? I kind of did. Fuck.
It adds a little bit of accidental but very welcome comedy. Not only are the shadows a safe haven, they make the areas look less disgusting too. The more you can see of an area, the more you feel like you need to take a shower. Every place in this game is a type of rundown, abandoned, urban area, and there's a lot of synergy in that aesthetic, but all of them are distinct from one another. The easiest comparison that comes to mind is the vibrantly drab look of the mall from Dead Rising. This uniformed backrooms design where every section of the mall has its own uniquely monotone vibe to it. As much as I love the effort put into the remake, it does feel like some of that charm was lost in the process. Though it might just be because the graphics of the original with the style that they were going for mesh better as the game becomes more dated. It's a weird effect that also happens in Manhunt, which I have to start playing again.
I'm being so honest, I don't really want to play this anymore.
Wildly different and dense with detail, but alike in a way that they're weirdly familiar. You've definitely seen places like this before, but never in this bad of a shape and never in this bad of a context. It's kind of disorienting. It's really topped off by the music though. I think every mission will have its own ambiance track that uses a mix of what I think are droning synth waves and some other sounds that I don't think are coming from instruments. Loud, echoing noises. They're not exactly alien, more like distorted in some way. I don't know what they are, which makes it surprisingly less stressful when the getting caught music comes on. It's definitely giving "You're About to Die," but it's like 80s vibe "You're About to Die." You know what other sounds are weirdly comforting? It is single-handedly the most relaxing thing about this game. Just like when I talked about Red Dead Revolver, the game's aging graphics helps the retro feeling it's imitating. They add film grain, desaturation, and other effects to simulate features of older films, and that pairs really well with the game's naturally dated graphics. Like choppy, barely together home-recorded footage of something you have no real business seeing. The only place that the aging definitely doesn't help is with the executions. So I'm not sure if you've been able to tell at this point, but I'm not exactly the biggest fan of the gameplay. It's not bad. The level design, the objectives, and tools you're given actually add a lot of really smart ways to make this stealth more engaging. But I think a big part of what's supposed to make this game fun is the brutal executions you can do. Most weapons have 3 unique executions that range in level of brutality. And yeah, the actions themselves are pretty gnarly. That's an 80s word, I think that's appropriate here. But it's got about the same effect as a headshot in the old GTAs. The camera work and VHS filter are helping to emphasize what's being done. It's making it look a lot nastier than the models themselves can. They're definitely still disturbing. You just gotta work a little harder to take it seriously. Now, if you haven't played this game before or seen it, the flickering effects in my footage might have looked like a natural part of what the game was going for. But fun fact, that is not supposed to be happening. I am playing the PS2 to PS4 port on PlayStation 5, and a lot of games that were just straight ports like this are kind of broken here. But you know, it adds a little bit to the tension. It goes along with the VHS filter and messy recording feeling. You know, there's a threat of it messing up my PS5 somehow, so actually that sounds like a pretty good excuse to stop playing this game. Manhunt is the definition of edgy in the 80s. If Vice City personifies the glamorized high-life crime of that era, then Manhunt pairs with it well, showing off the degenerate low-life crime side of that time. It doesn't train you to be a serial killer, it's just got serial killer vibes to it.
Ow.
It's not my favorite to play, but it's definitely worth putting up with. On something it works on. Do not play this shit on PS5. It's not even badly designed or anything. It's more like another Resident Evil 1 situation for me. Or the new Resident Evil 1 situation for me. That game is so good, man. Even with that though, the atmosphere this game's able to put together makes it a must-play for any fan of horror. It's not scary because of your inability to deal with something or the fear of not knowing what's going on. It's not anxiety, not a fear of death, or even a fear of jump scares like this.
Don't do that.
It's more so a fear of living. While the plot is pretty crazy, none of what you're feeling or seeing feels exaggerated or unbelievable. More like forgotten about or underground, just not taken care of in any regard. And it adds to this feeling that you could possibly end up here one day, in this environment or even in this headspace. It sounds ridiculous out loud. Like, I'm poor, but privileged enough to be around good people. I've never been close to any of what this is, but it's not impossible for anyone to lose themselves.